Before I start this video, I want to clarify. I know there's like so much information on the Wiki pages and the Trello pages of this game, but there's just some absolutely obscure things that you can't really fit into there, and that's most of what I intend to go over in this video. Hello everybody, and welcome back to my final Decaying Winter video. Granted, I only made about 3 of them. This video is going to go over a bunch of just absolutely random facts that the Wiki did not have, and neither did the Trello, so yeah, I learned a lot from the last video I made. Your guys' comments were very helpful for me. And let's get into it. The first category I want to start off with was traits. There wasn't a lot I could find here, but one thing I did have a question about is whether violent tendencies that makes you light swing faster or manic that makes you heavy swing faster can affect your fists. Here's what light swinging looks like without the trait, and here's it side by side with the trait. Here's the heavy swings. The traits are very clearly effective here. This next part is concerning traits and bows. If you didn't watch my last video, I did a little bit about this, but one of the ones I saw is the semi-automatic trait Paranoid. Does that affect bows? Once again, it's me spamming click, seeing how fast I can shoot without clicking, and then the last 2 shots I did a charge shot. As you can see, they're nearly identical. This next one has to do with the Executioner Blade, which honestly might have just been a me thing, but I was under the assumption that the heavy swing, when you get a kill with it, it heals you 5 HP. That part is true, but it also might apply to the light swing. So here I'm testing it out on this random guy. I'm at 73 HP right now. When I kill him, however, I'm at 78, so the light swing does, as a matter of fact, heal just as much as the heavy swing does. Here, once again, I'm at 73. Heavy swing, I'm at 78. Now moving on to the absolutely everything random category, where it doesn't fit in with traits, perks, or random weapons. Some examples of this are highest health and stamina you can have, where you can stand without being sniped, and some other random junk that people just might not know. The first one on the list is you can zoom in and out in the spectate screen. You can actually use this to see the upstairs, which is completely empty. The second part is how many items are in the shop. There's a total of 40 tops, 28 bottoms, 4 head items, 15 helmets, 14 masks, 10 lower accessory, 18 hair items. In the Quartermaster shop, which is unlocked by pledging, basically get to level 100, you pledge, you get 100 bonds, there is a total of 30 items, in which there are 10 weapon skins, 11 helmets including hairs, 8 pieces of clothing, and a singular skull bandana. Workshop is a pretty easy one, which it only has 30 helmets, they're all helmets. You can also slide while using consumable items. It's very helpful if you're trying to run away from someone and use a stim. Crates will always have full ammo if there's a gun inside, and similar to a scrapper, you can actually look away while you're opening one. Crafting a weapon will also give you a full loaded magazine. For this example, it's an AK which has a total of 30 shots. Turrets can actually run out of ammo. It's very difficult to do this though, and you need a lot of enemies. Another interesting thing here is guns won't alert enemies during Scav War. If you hit them, they definitely do get alerted though. The way the storm works is if you look at the right side of your map, that's where it starts off, and it will slowly push itself all the way to the safe zone. Playing as Survivor with absolutely no traits, you can see here that as the storm is arriving, you can actually completely outrun it. Just as long as you don't have a broken leg or exhaust, you can make it all the way back to your base from the other end of the map. Any shield item used by the Sledge Queen people, so the car door or the riot shield can be meleeed through, it's only gun protection. Hemostatic can actually fix a broken leg entirely. The interesting part about it though is the buff it gives you afterwards. You can still get a broken leg while it's active, it just completely nullifies the effect and you can still sprint and do everything you normally would. The second it runs out though, you're back to having a broken leg, so you gotta be careful about that. This silly little windmill here, it's actually completely useless. You can walk into it, it won't be an impediment for you at all. The fire on both of the craft ships isn't actually just decorational, you can indeed get set on fire by it. This goes for the one on top of the mountain as well. There are two dolls that may look very familiar to you in this corner of the map. It's located right next to the valley. I'm sure you've seen them before, but there's actually also a fish on top of a tank on top of the tower. I also learned there is a storm watch, which tells you when the storm is coming in, and I didn't know that. I'm pretty sure it's rather new. The highest amount of health you can have is by playing the Zealot class, which gives you an extra boost, and having the Tormented perk, which increases your HP by 20. It gives you a total of 155 health, which is a lot. On the contrary, in order to get the highest stamina value, you have to be playing the Sovereign class with the trait Calm. The trait Calm will give you 75 extra stamina. This provides for an astonishing 275 stamina. I don't know what you need to do with that much, but hey, if you're shoving a lot, I would recommend it. It takes a lot of hitting a rock to completely destroy it, and every time you do, you get 10 salvage and 5 total rocks. Now it's important to know when you heavy attack, it's the same as doing a single light attack. It's based on the number of hits that it takes, not the amount of damage you do. And it takes a total of 15 scrap to craft a quiver, and you get 10 scrap from mining the complete rock. Therefore, you have to have at least 5 scrap if you're going to make a quiver. On that note, quivers can actually do a little bit of damage if you throw them at an enemy. If you don't know, when you craft a quiver, you get 4 of them, and you can throw them. Now we're going to look at the sniper that's guarding the Sledge Queen Tower. This was very interesting, trying to find out where he can shoot you, because the castle is blocking many of his shots, and after taking the first one, the character is actually rotated to look directly at you. So if you're shot from head on like you're looking at now, he can't shoot you from the side if you go around him. You can also see here that this is the range that he can mostly get you. So just as long as you stay, you know, behind that little wall there, you're relatively safe. A fun hunting axe fact is that one shots no matter where you throw it, and it will always go onto their head after you kill someone. A well-known fact about this game is that enemies can actually backstab you. Not really a stab, but if you're facing away from an enemy, they make a different hit sound effect and do significantly more damage. However, something really important to know here too is that doesn't actually affect guns. It's only people with melees that can backstab you. You can see here, when I'm facing him, he's doing the same exact amount of damage as when I'm facing away, and there's no special hit sound effect. You can kill a Skinner before it transforms, and the only indication other than having a lot more health than normal that it was a Skinner is that slight shadow effect you see when it dies, because its body looks normal. Certain enemies have an attack called an Absolver hit, where you can't parry it at all. It's that little white glow you see, and it always happens after a 3-hit combo, and there's a few people that can do it, including this Wakizashi man, a shovel, and a Sledge Queen can also do it. Here you can see you can actually shove to cancel it out. I was thinking maybe, you know, you can't shove, you can't parry, there's no way to stop it. You can actually shove, and that goes for all other variants too. And also, just throwing it out there, you cannot shove a grapple. Smoke bombs do not work on sicklers. If you ever try to loot whatever this thing is supposed to be, it's not going to turn out well for you. The Sledge Queen guards will almost always shoot you. There is no stealth mechanic in this game for you. You cannot sneak behind an enemy and get a drop on them. They will always know if you're nearby. On that topic, the enemy detection in this game is very weird. If you're above them, and their pathfinding AI has no clue how to get to you, they just kind of give up at some point. This goes for whether you're shooting a gun, or even if you're setting off a flare trap, they'll just take a few shots and then decide to give up on you. However, if you go to the same level as them and do the same exact thing, they will all run after you. If you didn't know, in the fan art hall at the very back, there's a guitar you can pick up. And all the way on top of the tower, there's actually a person you can give it to play music. But what you might not have known is it gives you an extra minute of time on your Stormwatch. This means the storm will come a whole minute later if you give her the guitar. This is unrelated, but if you die after giving her the guitar, you can actually hear her playing music while in the menu screen. The music she plays is based off of Cyberpunk 2077, where Carrie, hero dying, plays it on a yacht, which is also based off of the song Down by Randbox. When you put the key card into the secret area for the true ending, it sets your timer to 3 minutes, so you have enough time to do whatever the heck you need. It doesn't give you additional time. And this does stack when you give her the guitar. So you can have a solid 4 minutes to do basically whatever the heck you need to do in there. Be careful though, because if the storm is already coming and you insert the key card in there, the time will not change at all. And you just kind of get screwed over by the storm. There's a lot more titles in the game than you think there are. Some of them you have to go to the Discord server and read through the agency terminal, and it gives you a whole list of super difficult challenges to do. One of the ones I did is Master of All Trades, where you achieve every challenge, complete every challenge, and you get the role in the server. And if you submit a video of you doing it, then you will actually get the title in the game as well. Although you can change how fast you can reload a gun, the speed that you unload a gun will always be the same no matter what perks, buffs you have active. It's always the same speed when you unload a gun. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, will it explode? When an enemy shoots an explosive barrel, unfortunately it will not explode. A hunting axe will blow up a barrel, and you can actually get it back afterward, too. I'm personally a hater of this auxiliary item. I've never found a use for it compared to the others, and unfortunately, it does not explode barrels. The remote explosive, also you can place it right next to a barrel, which I don't know what benefit this gives you, it explodes anyway. It will indeed blow up a barrel. The smoke bomb auxiliary, if it makes direct contact with the barrel, it will explode. The steel snares, however, unfortunately do not set off an explosive barrel. I think that would have been really funny if they did, though. Throwing caltrops directly at an explosive barrel will make it explode. However, the caltrops themselves, like the ones that splatter around, cannot make an explosive barrel blow up. An impact grenade, as expected, can make a barrel explode. However, the area of the explosion will also make a barrel explode. The fire from a firebomb cannot make a barrel explode. The ability of the Vagabond class can also not explode barrels. I was disappointed. The close-up attack of the Arbiter will also not explode barrels. This goes for the further attack as well. I thought the Arbiter one was going to do it, so I thought maybe this one wouldn't. No, it's a gun. It's going to explode a barrel. I don't know what I expected. The Crosslink class ability, when you throw it at a barrel, it does not explode. When you retract it, however, it also does not explode. The bomb you get from playing Blitzer can be attached to a barrel and will not blow it up at all. The Apostle ability, the one that you throw a knife and it marks a person, cannot blow up a barrel. When you press the ability button once as Immolator, you do an explosion. That cannot blow up barrels. When you hold F, you do like a flamethrower attack. That also cannot blow up barrels. Well, when you die with it, it does an explosion that also does not blow up barrels. The Ritual Dagger from the Sovereign class cannot blow up barrels. Rather unfortunate. And that's all we have today for the Will It Explode? Moving on to perk specific stuff, where there's at least one thing for each perk. There are 20 perks in Decaying Winter, and each one has their own cosmetic. These cosmetics do not show up on the holo. With that in mind, let's look at all of them. The Arbiter class has a bandolier of bullets, nothing interesting on the back, but at the front, if you look at the right angle, you can see a lot of blue shotgun shells. When you use your ability, it magically appears on your hand and then disappears immediately after. Executioner has a really weird backpack. I don't know the purpose, but for the way the class is set up, I assume it tracks bounties and all of that. Obviously it has the goggles, but you know. The Tick Spider class has a backpack full of tick spiders. When you throw them, however, it does not decrease on the cosmetic. The Arbiter class has a remote detonator and 4 bombs on the front, and that's the most interesting part there. The Prophet class has nothing up front, and on the back it's a futuristic looking backpack with an eye that faces forwards. The Apostle has tendrils that covers around him, and a spiky hand when you're using the melee. The Lazarus class has a medicine box on his back with straps on the front. The Immolator class has a belt. Connected to it is a fuel canister and 2 glowing vials, 2 on the right, 2 on the left. The Damned class has cuffs, nothing else, but you can see a chain between them if you look hard enough. The Hive Mind class has a container at the back, and of course the bugs flying around you. The Risk Runner class has a massive gun on your back, which is actually slightly smaller than when you pull it out. The Zealot also has a weird backpack on the back, which looks like a spatula attached to it, and the shield is the size of your arm. The Crosslink class has a spool of wire behind you, and the knives are strapped to your chest. When you use your ability, you can see all 5 knives when you're holding them, and they will go down as you use them. The Artillerist only has a gun up front, nothing interesting on the back. But when you use this gun, there is an animation that other people can see when you actually pull out the gun. However, they do not see the gun spin. The Drifter class has some interesting smoke bombs up front and a cape, or a cloak you could say, on the back. The Vagabond class only has the sword. There is an animation when you use it, but it's not really anything interesting. The Mind Flayer class has a pouch where you get all of your little drones from, but you don't actually reach into the bag ever, and you just throw them from out of nowhere. The Sovereign class obviously has a backpack with some really annoying spinning knives at the back, which you can actually see as you're playing the class if you look downwards. And when you shove, you can see the knife. Starting off with Hive Mind, we're skipping Survivalist because I don't count that as a perk really, but here we're going to find out how long exactly it takes to kill someone with Divide or Disperse. I have a timer set on screen, and he dies at exactly, basically 10 seconds. He dies in 10 seconds. Of course, that's not taking into consideration how good Direct is, which should theoretically kill them faster because it does more damage. Oh yeah, that's much faster. You can see there's a bunch of examples, I'll call them, around the area they test this out on too. And one of the interesting things I noticed here is when I get close to them, the bugs that are following me, like the ones that surround me, are also occasionally giving me hit markers. So on this final guy over here, you know, he's holding revolver. He's a really weak person. He just hurts a lot. If I stand next to him, you can see I get more hit markers, but he dies at the same speed like most people do of that much HP. So that was it for the Hive Mind class. We're moving on to the Arbiter, where the knockback for this class is really weird. Obviously, you know, when you use your ability, it pushes you back some, but it doesn't matter how close you are to the explosion. The knockback will actually always be the same and opposite of whatever direction you're facing. This is typically used to go upwards, and the knockback, once again going upwards, is the same for the normal one as far as the extended. The explosion of the long shot, however, will actually move you a lot more upwards, and this is seen whether you jump beforehand or don't jump beforehand. It's sending you high enough that you're going to die to the ceiling. Something you might have noticed was near the windmill I also took no fall damage, and I'm sure this is going to be patched very soon, but normally when you go that high up, this class can take fall damage. You're immune to like the broken leg effect and all, but you do definitely take fall damage when you land. However, what I found out is if the middle of your body is off the edge when you land on the ground, then you actually take no fall damage for some reason. This is very useful information that I wish I knew when getting Arbiter Mastery. The Arbiter Longshot does 90 damage to yourself and enemies, and something I thought was really interesting is the Fearless trait, which makes you take 25% less damage from guns and explosives, has absolutely no effect on this. The Risk Runner class, obviously, and this is some basic information, but you just have a massive gun, and it infinitely pierces, does 18 damage. You get a total of like 1 shot for every percent, so you have 100 shots, 18 times 100, you can do a total of 1,800 damage, blah blah blah. But 1,800 is enough to kill Sledge Queen if you have a full, 100%. However, she actually takes only 14 damage due to the 25% invincibility to bullets. It doesn't matter where you hit, it will always do 18 damage unless the enemy has defense, in which case it once again doesn't matter where you hit. Because sledgehammers, they're very special. They only have their helmet that does, you do less damage with guns, but it doesn't matter where you shoot them, it will have that effect because you can't get headshots. Traits also do not affect the gun whatsoever if you equip traits. You can see that I have the one that less recoil and hipfire accuracy increased, because you can't really aim with it. And there's absolutely no change to either of those effects. Also, the bloom gets smaller the more you use it. That's just a thing. Starting off with one I think is rather self-explanatory, is if the shield can count towards your stealth kills. So the Unseen Shadow achievement, you kill like 30 people without them noticing you and you unlock the Drifter. That can be done with the Zealot shield. If you can use it right, you can definitely get the achievement faster. Also, it's not very effective against Sledge Queen. The turret part is, but if you hold F and use like the handheld shield, it immediately breaks the second you get hit by Sledge Queen. The Tick Spider's 2 modes. When you hold F, it sends down a red non-moving tick spider that did 60 damage to this person. They normally have 80 health, and I did about 30 damage and they died, so 60 damage. The light blue spider is capable of moving a little and then exploding, which the downside is it does less damage. He got hit by the explosion there, you can see he was stunned. And then I proceeded to hit him 4 times, each doing 6 damage, so I did a total of 24 damage to him, meaning that the blue tick did a lot more damage than the red, which isn't supposed to happen, but it did anyway, so. Also, this class deals increased explosion damage, which will apply to the Decimator, as well as any other explosive items. For the Crosslink class, my game was lagging a lot, but it actually helped out a lot because you could see the wire and how far it actually goes when I retracted it. You can see that after I take the knife for some glitch reason, the wire's still there. And there's a knife all the way at the right edge of the door, so you can actually see how far it really goes, which it's somewhere around like 35 studs. But this is what it actually looks like. That knife is the furthest it can go. Anything after that and it doesn't connect. You can have a total of 6 knives down at once because every 90 seconds they despawn, and that adds up to a lot of wires. Of course, it's only temporary though. In the perk page, one of the pros you have is immune to explosive effects. I thought that meant you were fully immune, but actually you just don't get fractures from explosives, which is really helpful if you think about it. Anyway, you can get a bomb about every 18 seconds, and you start off with 6. After about 3 minutes, actually exactly 3 minutes, the bombs start despawning. Therefore, you can have a maximum of 16 bombs out before they start despawning, but by the time you have exactly 16, they're already gone, basically. These bombs can be attached to the holo emitter. However, if the wave defense is starting and it teleports back to base, the bombs will be left behind. One of my favorite uses for this class is using it as sort of a flare. The gun is much louder than other guns, so the range that enemies will come towards you because you shot it is much larger. So if you shoot at like spawn where the turrets are, all the enemies are walking into the turrets. Here's a bunch of examples of the range. You can see from about halfway across the map these people are chasing me, and from the same exact spot you can see that even more people will find me and try to kill me. The buff that you get from hitting a headshot with the gun reduces recoil, increases reload speed, and increases aim down sight speed as well. What I'm testing here is I have absolutely no traits whatsoever, and I'm going to see if equipping all the gun traits while having the buff active does anything special. With all the traits active and the buff, I have an astonishing 0 recoil. And that goes for every gun that I tested. It's just no recoil at all. It's very weird to use. And the reload is very fast as well. You can see that the second the buff runs out too, my recoil is back to normal. If you shoot an enemy that doesn't instantly die to a headshot, you will not get the buff or the 50% cooldown reduction. The increased crafting for this class only applies to handcrafting, so if you're mixing 2 rocks together to get a stone scrap, it's going to cost 10 instead of the normal 5. And this does not apply to workbench crafting. So your average pistol, it takes 50 scrap to create, and that's how much it uses. It doesn't affect workbench, only handcrafting. The little beam scanner that you shoot out with this class actually does damage, but every time somebody is scanned, they show they have full health, and when, it gets to the bottom, it shows that they're dead. But every time you scan, it doesn't matter if you hurt them beforehand, it will always show them at full health until they die. If you need any more examples, here's people walking through fire, and then I scan them after the fire, and it starts them off with full HP, despite the fact that's not actually what they have. And of course, for the average scavs, this pistol's doing like 60 damage total, and they have about 85 health, so yeah, it does damage. The Drifter icon is actually a reference to a Rainbow Six Siege character. As Drifter, if you hold F, you do a little teleport, which uses up a little bit of your percentage, and then once you're, teleported, you can set as many people as you want, and afterward you teleport back. But does it save you from fall damage? You can see I took fall damage there, so afterward it doesn't. And no, it absolutely does not. If you try to cloak a holo, it also doesn't work. You can see there's no smoke particles on it whatsoever, and the dude just shoots them anyway. Also, when you right click with the ability, you heal 10 HP, if you hit, of course. I'm going to talk a little bit about some stuff on the wiki so I can just get it out there. But first of all, you actually spawn with the hand equip, which I'm pretty sure is rather new. And no, traits do not affect the Dave. Dave is the name of the little shadow demon that you spawn as Apostle, and commonly given that by the people of, the people that play Decaying Winter. And traits do not change him whatsoever. He is a minion. Basically think of like the Mind Flayer when he controls an enemy. Your traits obviously wouldn't affect him. And this means they can also see the ghost enemy and attack him if you've ever tried that. If you get a kill with the hand equipped, you will heal HP, doesn't matter if it's light or heavy attack. If you use your ability to mark a person, the Dave will constantly target that person regardless of who's around, but will still be able to parry and dodge the other person's attack. When they kill the person who's marked, you will gain HP as well as Dave, because in the recent updates, it doesn't matter whether a person is marked or not anymore. When Dave kills somebody, he actually gains 5 HP. Of course, he's still not invincible though. When you spawn Dave, he is vulnerable while spawning in. He can be attacked until he's like fully up, so just don't use it if you're actively being attacked. As Vagabond, you cannot one-shot scavengers wielding scissors. However, if they are wielding a specialist knife, they have just enough health to be one-shot by Kira. Kira, of course, being the name of the sword. Here's me running from one side of the map to the other with 10 dog tags, and here's a side-by-side with me having 15 dog tags as well as 10. The cap of movement speed is 10 dog tags. If you're missing 11 health and you use your dog tags, you're actually going to use 2 because it rounds up. But it actually rounds up to the decimal too. The Lazarus ability cannot stun Sledge Queen. The Lazarus ability can technically heal you under very specific circumstances. Because of the way the death prevention works, if you drop below 30 health and live, it can technically heal you. I have never seen this healing exceed about 30 health, and honestly, it's a really good perk to have. As the Berserker class, when you get a kill with the buff active, heal 2 HP. Doesn't matter how you get that kill, just as long as you get the kill, you will heal. You also heal 2 HP for every heavy attack you hit. So if you kill someone with a heavy attack, you're actually going to heal 4 HP, because kills, once again, heal 2. The Berserker buff also gives you a 45% increase in damage, which is such a large amount. However, it gives you no increase in defense whatsoever. The Immolator buff will give your arrows, bullets, all that stuff a fire effect. It does also apply to your fists, so if you hit an enemy with your fists while you have the buff active, they will be set on fire. The Immolator buff will transfer to other players in the game, but it will not go to allies such as Dave or the thralls that the Sovereign can summon, and it also doesn't go to anybody in Holdout. The Sovereign class comes with a shove that does 10 damage and will mark an enemy. This does stack with the Ballistic Dagger if you have it equipped, so when you shove someone you can do 22 damage, which, with the amount of stamina this class can have and how fast you can shove, it's really good and will really help you. Oh yeah, you can also kill yourself with the ability if it's not fully charged. During the looting phase of the night, when you kill a person they drop rations, so beans, soda, water, etc. But what if you mind control a person so that they teleport back to your base during wave defense? Would they still drop rations? For the record, if you mind control someone and they die during wave defense, they will drop rations. So. Nope. No rations. Once again, the reduced crafting cost for this class only applies to handcrafting, not if you use a workbench. It lowers it from 5 scrap needed to craft to 2. With the Executioner class, the only qualification to get a bounty is to kill something with your hands. Now, you could throw an item, and as long as you're holding a melee weapon, whether that be your hands or, a melee, you will actually get the bounty credit. This is effective for explosives and effects, such as bleed. When the mask breaks, you can still kill people and do other things with the bounties you have. You can see here that it broke and I still one-shot him with the light melee attack. You can also heal and other things like that. Now we're getting into the technical part of Executioner class, because the more kills you get, the more damage you do, but by how much more damage you do. The way I have this graphed is at 0 kills, you do 100% damage, which is normal. And at, say, 30 kills, you do about 400% more damage, give or take. So using some basic math, one bounty increases your damage by about 9.8%. And each kill after that will increase it by 9.8% each time. And best of all, a 5-minute look around the internet could not tell me this information. A large shout out to Ket Capel Domates, I don't actually know how to pronounce the name, but I'm assuming that is, on giving me the entirety of the way damage is calculated in this game. So if you have a buff, such as the methodical buff that gives you a 15% damage buff, it actually goes straight to the damage that you do and is completely unaffected. So say you have 100 damage, you have a perfect flat 100 damage weapon, and you have methodical that does 15% extra damage, then obviously you're going to do 115%. But if you have morale that's, say, minus 22, what really happens with the weapon damage? The weapon I'm testing is the Maria baseball bat that does 80 heavy damage. This is with no buffs whatsoever and no debuffs, and the Hive Mind class gives no benefits to melee. Here, I have a nice neat little graph that's going to go over every possible scenario that will increase the damage in the Maria. The way I have this set up is I have 3 different tables. One is empty just so I can simply explain to you. Another is if the percentages add up with each other, and the other is if they multiply with each other. So the 2 possible scenarios of how the damage is calculated are those 2 options. Anything else, and we kind of have a problem, but for the most part, this is how it is. So, if you look at the middle table, you can see that you have a normal 80%, the very top left, that's just how much damage the Maria does with the heavy attack. If you go one to the right of that 80, you get 92, which is how much damage it does with the methodical effect and nothing else. And if you go to the right, that's how much it does with the combat stim and nothing else. So if you use just a combat stim, no traits, no perks, whatever, you will do 108 damage. The Drifter class gives you an additional 30% buff towards damage, therefore you will do 104 damage if you're the Drifter class and you have none of these other effects. Now we just have to test out which one of these is really the case. With just a combat stimulant active and no other buff, I was doing 108 damage as the Hive Mind class because it gives no melee benefits. With the methodical trait and nothing else, I was doing 92 damage with the weapon. And with the methodical trait and a combat stimulant combined, I was hitting for about 120 damage. As the Drifter class with no active buffs, I was hitting for 104 heavy damage. With a combat stimulant and no other buffs, I was hitting for about 132 damage. These next few parts I enlisted the help of my friend, so I didn't need to get 50 million Marias. As Drifter with the methodical trait, he was doing 118 damage with the heavy attack. With the combat stimulant and methodical trait, and as Drifter, which was everything combined, he hit for a 128 damage. That is including morale though, so if we subtract that out, he was actually hitting for about 148 damage. When we combine all of this and look at how the table compares with it, we can see that all of it matches up for the most part, except for a few calculations, and whenever the Drifter got a combat stimulant, that's when things got a bit wonky. But for the most part, these were very accurate results. By the same process, we can also assume that any negative debuffs, like morale, work the same exact way, just negative. For this next part, I wanted to determine what was the best weapon for each tier, because if you've ever played this game, you know that there's like a large assortment of weapons, each with their own tier, each with something that they're best at. And I wanted to determine what was best at each tier, and for each light swing, heavy swing, you know, what on average would be best. And that's what we're going over. And the way I have this organized is that the orange is kind of like an average. You know, it's great for both heavy and light, but it's not the best in those categories. The green, on the other hand, is the best for light swing. So you can see the lead pipe. It has 40 total light swing and 100%. It's phenomenal for light swinging. It's perfect. Cleaver, on the other hand, 35 heavy damage and 75%. That was the best I found for the heavy swing category. Now, do keep in mind that some of the orange ones might be a little better or a little worse than the light swing or heavy swings that I have highlighted, and that's just how it is sometimes. For the tier 2, however, the two averages I found were the frying pan and the ice axe. Now it's very clear here when you look at the two. The frying pan does less damage than the ice axe total, but has a faster swing, and the ice axe does more damage, but the swing is only 75%. For the best light swing in this category, it's the wakizashi, doing a total of 60 damage with 75%, and the best heavy is the boar spear, doing 46 with a 100% swing rate. For the tier 3s, we have a good example of the orange averages are slightly better or exactly the same as the light swing or heavy swing. You can see the Yari and the specialist knife here are the top in the category for 60 light damage, 50 heavy, and the Yari has 75 swing rate in both. Specialist knife has 50 swing rate for both, 76 light, 46 heavy. The splitting axe has the same, splitting axe being the best for the light, has the same exact stats as the Yari, which I thought was interesting. And the hidden knife, well, it's just the best in the category. It's not really special in any way. Now the tier 4 weapons were very interesting because there's only 5 of them, and the way I categorized it was the average one was the halberd, doing 75% swing rate for both, 72 light, 60 heavy. The Lamio blade was actually the best here, doing 80 light swing damage with 100% and 50 heavy, also with 100%. So the Lamio's blade is really good. The Greatsword was the best here, doing 63 heavy at 75% swing rate. And the Sledgehammer and Fire Axe weren't really good for anything, so I just kind of had to leave them out of this. You can see the Sledgehammer has 25% swing rate for both, and the Fire Axe has 50 swing rate for light and 25 for heavy. They do good damage, they're just really slow weapons. Otherwise, if you get a halberd, Lamio blade, greatsword, you should be using that instead of a sledgehammer or fire axe. Moving on to the final category, which is the crafted items, the Fiery Axe does 96 light with 100% swing rate, and it's not the best for light swing compared to the crafted, so I put it in the average category, but it's definitely really good with light swing compared to heavy. And the Maria, on the other hand, has 100% in both, but does a bit less light damage, so you're going to want to use heavy attack for that. The absolute best for light attacks here is the Reaper Scythe, doing a whopping 120 light damage and 75% swing speed. It also does 90 heavy damage, which is really good for 50%. That almost matches the Decimator. The reason you might want to not use it, though, is if you're shoving or fighting Sledge Queen, because the shove uses a lot of stamina. On the other hand, the Decimator is the best for heavy swing in this category. It does 100, 60 on hit, 40 explosion. The explosion is splash damage, so you can hit other enemies with it and stun them with a 50% swing rate, which isn't best, but for how, incredibly powered that weapon is, 50 is pretty good. The only reason you might want to not use it is to get rations, because if you heavy swing on someone, they're going to die. But you can, light swing with it. 56 is rather still a lot of damage for a weapon to have. And with that, I think I went over basically everything on the Trello or the Wiki. Obviously, once again, some of it's gonna be on there because it's a lot of basic information, and I do recommend that you check out the pages if you want to learn more about the game, and if you have any questions, I'm sure, there's communities out there that can help you. This will be my last Decaying Winter video, so I'm moving on from this, but you can absolutely find help. Leave a comment, I'll probably respond to, or just check the pages yourself.